Imagine you are walking down a very long, very dark hallway inside a giant old castle. Everything is quiet. You can hear your own heart beating like a little drum. Suddenly, you see a small, heavy door that is cracked open just a tiny bit. Behind that door is a secret paper that no one was ever supposed to see. This paper is called Project Mirror. It is not just a regular book. It is a 42-page plan to change the whole world for the King of England and his entire family. Right now, something huge is happening. The British royal family is in the middle of a big, big problem. It might be the biggest problem they have ever had in their long history. No loud sirens are screaming in the streets, but inside the palace walls, a silent alarm has gone off. This secret file was found, and in just a few short hours, the future of the king and the queen was in danger. A secret plan worth many millions of dollars was stopped. Passports for the little children were marked so they could not leave. Prince Harry had to make a choice that made everyone around him feel very surprised. His choice left his helpers shaking and his wife Meghan's team very confused and worried. Was this a fight about who gets to take care of the kids? Was it a fight about who is in charge? Or was it a secret deal that went way too far? One single move changed everything. This was not just a little family fight like you might have with your brother or sister. It was a royal trap. This is the story of the hidden plan that almost changed the world forever. Stay with us as we look at how a prince chose to be just a dad and how the palace fought back to save the crown. Right now, the British royal family is stuck in a giant mess. It is one of the biggest crises they have ever faced. You might think people would be shouting or that bells would be ringing to warn everyone, but it was very quiet. Behind the big stone walls of the palace, a secret alarm was triggered. A private file was found, and within just a few hours, the future of the royal family was at risk. A secret plan to move away, which cost tens of millions of dollars, was suddenly stopped. The passports for the children were flagged by the government, and Prince Harry made a choice that left everyone very upset. Meghan's team did not know what to do and was very surprised. People wondered if this was about who gets to keep the children, who has the most power, or if it was a secret deal that went too far. One big move changed everything. This was not just a normal family argument. It was a royal interception. This was the secret plan to leave. Long before anyone went to the court in Santa Barbara, a very smart and quiet plan had been written down. It was done very carefully and had a lot of detail. The plan was finished on January 18, 2026. It was a 42-page book called Project Mirror. Later on, people who study these things said it was a full plan to move the family to a new place. This was not just a small idea about starting a new life. It was a big, organized plan that would take many years to finish. This plan was tied to a huge media deal worth $37 million. The money was coming from a company that was linked to a very rich group of people from a country called Qatar. The main part of the plan was for the family to move to a city called Doha and stay there forever. The 42-page paper showed every single step of the move. It showed where they would live in big, fancy houses. It showed how security guards would keep them safe. It showed where the children would go to school. It even showed how they would use their royal names to make a brand and more money for a long time. A very special school in Doha had already started the paperwork for the children to join. Later, computer experts looked at the files. They found that someone had looked at those school forms many times using Meghan Markle's own computer login name. The secret plan also talked about the children becoming citizens of Qatar. This was a special way to keep the children under the laws of Qatar instead of the laws of England or America. This part of the plan changed everything. This is because when the law changes to a new country, the parents get more power over what happens to the kids. The money used for this move was also very planned out. Records showed a big group of secret accounts in places like the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands. These are places where people hide money so others cannot see it. Between the end of 2025 and the start of 2026, logs from private airplanes showed many trips. These planes flew back and forth between an airport in California and the city of Doha. The flights were not paid for by personal bank accounts. They were paid for by secret companies that hid who was really spending the money. If you looked at just one detail, it might not seem like a big deal. But when you put all the little details together, they made a giant, smart strategy. What made Project Mirror so dangerous was not just that it was a big plan. It was because of when it was happening. On February 11, 2026, Harry and Meghan had just agreed on a plan for their kids in California. That agreement followed a special promise from 2024. That promise was made to keep royal children safe and happy no matter where they lived. It said that no one could move the kids to a new country unless both parents said yes in writing. Project Mirror seemed to be a secret way to go around those rules. People who study the law looked at the plan later. They said that moving with the help of the leaders in Qatar would make it very hard for anyone to use international rules to keep the children safe. Even if no rules were broken yet, having the plan showed what they wanted to do. In court, what you plan to do is very important. It especially matters when children are moving across the world. In simple words, the secret plan showed a future where the kids would live in a place where the US and the UK could not reach them. The $37 million was supposed to be for making TV shows and media. But inside that deal, there were rules about showing the lives of the two royal children. It talked about their school, where they would go, and who would own the rights to their stories. This was not just moving to a new house. This was making a whole new life inside the palace. When the people in the palace found out, they stopped being quiet. They started to act. For a long time, there was a lot of stress that people did not see. But this was different. This was real proof. There were papers, airplane records, school forms, and money transfers. It showed they were getting ready for a long time. It was not a quick choice made in one day. The world was talking about independence and being free, but the reality was that the children's lives were about to change forever. What the people who made the plan did not know was that the people who watched the royal money were already looking. While the computers were being checked and the flight logs were being read, another plan was starting in London. Meghan did not know one very important thing. Prince William was already watching her every move very closely. But what if the real fight was not happening in America? What if it was happening inside London? That is where William was making his own secret move. Stay here with us to hear about the silent freeze from London. When the news of Project Mirror came out, the people in London did not get loud or angry. They did not scream. Instead, they followed the rules very carefully. Just a few days after the secret papers were found in January 2026, Prince William had a private meeting. He met with the people who run the money for the royal household. There were no public speeches and no one looked scared. What happened next was very controlled and calm. The first thing they did was stop everything. All the money and things that Prince Harry and Prince William owned together were checked. This included things like brand names and money from books or movies. Everything was put into a safe place called escrow. This is like a locked box that nobody can open without permission. The goal was very simple. Nothing that belonged to the royal family could be sold or moved without someone checking it first. At the same time, a big pile of money worth $7.8 million was frozen. This was money that Harry used to be able to use easily. A big 33-acre house in a place called Gloucestershire was also flagged. This means the house could not be sold or changed. These were not just small moves. These were real breaks being pulled on the money. The timing of this was very important. The Project Mirror plan needed a lot of money to work. It needed to move fast. Moving to a new country like Qatar costs more than you can imagine. You need cash you can use right away and control over your name. By stopping the money in the middle of February 2026, William slowed down the whole machine. This machine was the one that would have helped them move to Doha forever. But the money check did not stop there. Lawyers in California looked at the records very carefully. They found that $2.3 million had been spent on personal things between 2022 and 2025. They used credit lines that they both owned. The records showed exactly what the money was spent on. There was $480,000 spent on very expensive clothes from famous stores like Hermes and Dior. There was $670,000 spent on flying in private planes. Some of these flights were taken alone to places like Abu Dhabi and Nice. Another $310,000 went to people who help with how someone looks in the news. These numbers were not just shown to make them look bad. They were shown to show a pattern of how the money was used for themselves instead of for the charity. Harry's legal team was led by a man named Miles Armitage. He looked at the bank statements and compared them to the records from the Archwell Company. They claimed that some money spent on personal things was listed as being for the charity foundation instead. This is against the rules. At the same time, secret papers from the United States government were found. They talked about 2 bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. These accounts were linked to a company called Ecolver Limited. This company was set up in the British Virgin Islands. Between August and December of 2025, about $890,000 was sent to these accounts. The money came from people who planned big events in Dubai. When the palace used a special law from 2023, they sent these papers to the fraud office in the UK. Now, the fight about the kids was also a fight about money and laws. Because of this, the people working at Archwell began to lose hope. Important workers, like the person in charge of brands and the lawyer, quit their jobs. They quit only 24 hours after the news came out. Big companies like Spotify and Penguin Random House were also worried. They started to think twice about working with them in 2026. They did not want their names to be linked to something that looked like a scam. In London, the plan stayed the same. They wanted to make sure everything was stable and safe. They wanted to make sure no royal money could be used to move the children to another country. The $37 million plan was very big, but it needed fuel to run. By February 14, 2026, most of that fuel was locked up. What looked like a simple marriage problem was now a big mess of legal notices and international rules. The move had not happened yet, but the path to get there was being blocked. One bank account and one property at a time, the walls were closing in. Now, as every trademark and account got tighter, people wondered if Harry's love for his kids was starting a secret royal rebellion. Stay with us to hear about the moment Harry chose being a father over being a prince. By the middle of February 2026, the money was locked up and the battle was very real for Prince Harry. For many years, people told lies about him and his family. He said there comes a time when you have to look at the relationship between the royal family and the newspapers. What started as just legal papers became very personal. This happened the moment Project Mirror was read out loud in the courtroom in Santa Barbara. Before that day, Harry had only heard small bits of the plan. He heard lawyers talking and people explaining things. But seeing the whole plan on paper changed something inside of him. The 42-page book was not just an idea. It had real dates and times. It had school plans and media plans. It had the school forms for Doha that were already filled out. Experts told the court that those forms were looked at many times using Meghan's computer login. There were even notes about how to get citizenship in that country so they could stay there forever and the UK could not get them back. To the lawyers, it was a plan to move. To Harry, it was a map of a future that he did not fully understand until that very moment. Even more scary were the secret messages that were shown in court. One message was sent to a lawyer in Qatar. It asked about how to keep the kids safe and how to make sure they could not be sent back to the UK. That phrase alone was very heavy. It meant they were planning for a fight. It meant they expected someone to try to stop them. Harry had already been through years of fighting with his family, but this was different. The big question now was not about his reputation or how he looked in the news. It was about whether he could see his children every day. If they moved to Qatar under a secret deal, it could be very hard for him to see them. Even with the special rules from 2024, moving to a new country makes the law very hard to follow. On February 16, 2026, Harry's lawyers asked for something new. They wanted experts to check on how both parents were feeling. They were worried about the stress. This was not an attack on anyone. It was a way to make sure the kids would be okay. 2 days before that, the court was told about the money being frozen in London. The pressure was coming from everywhere. Then, the judge, a lady named Maya Caldwell, made a big order. She said the children's passports must be given to a person who does not take sides. She also said that if Meghan wanted to talk to the kids on a computer, someone had to watch. The feeling in the courtroom changed. It was no longer a fight about who told the best story. It was about keeping the kids safe from being taken away. People said Harry sat very still while the experts talked about the computer data. They talked about the 14 times the school forms were checked in 1 week. They talked about the airplane trips to the Middle East. They talked about the media deals for the kids. For years, Harry had fought for his freedom. He wanted to live his own life away from the palace rules. He wanted to be his own man. But in that courtroom, he saw that he might lose his children. He saw that they might be moved to a place where he could not reach them. That night, Harry wrote a letter. He did not sign it as the Duke of Sussex. He did not use the word prince. He used his real name, Henry Charles Albert David. This was a small move, but it was a big deal. It showed he was not picking a side between his family and his wife. He was picking his children. He was putting himself in the middle to keep them safe. The money was gone. The plan was stopped. But the biggest change was in Harry's heart. In that quiet courtroom, his royal title felt like it was far away. The only thing that mattered was being a dad. So did he really choose his kids over his royal history, or was this just another smart move in a hidden battle? Stay tuned to find out. While Harry was dealing with being a father in California, the royal family in England was doing something else. They did not have big, loud press conferences. They did not get emotional. Instead, the response from the palace was very calm and very organized. On the night of February 12, 2026, just before the big court dates, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, appeared in a short video. It was filmed at a place called Grey House. This was the house they made ready for Archie and Lily when they came to visit the UK. The video was very simple. Behind her, you could see children's drawings with bright colors. She did not wear a crown or fancy jewelry. She spoke for exactly 90 seconds. Her message was very calm. She said that she would do whatever she was asked to do with grace. She did not talk about the legal papers. She did not say the name Project Mirror. She only talked about keeping things stable and keeping children innocent. In just 8 hours, 11 million people had watched the video. In countries like Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, people started to feel differently. They stopped talking about the fight between adults and started talking about protecting the children. Behind the scenes, the palace was getting ready. Princess Anne was in charge of a special group to help with the children. A legal paper was sent to the courts in the UK and to the office in Los Angeles. It said that Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, would be a co-guardian. This means she would help look after the kids when they were in England. They said this was not to interfere, but to be prepared. Then something happened that surprised everyone. Lady Louise Windsor, the daughter of Prince Edward, flew to America. She went under a special diplomatic cover. She was with 2 people who help kids and a doctor for the mind. She went because of the special promise made in 2024. This promise said that royal children can be checked on if there is a risk to their name or their safety. Her visit was not just for show. It was part of the rules. Meghan's lawyers tried to stop her, but they could not. The international status of the children meant the rules were hard to block. Lady Louise's job was just to watch, but her being there showed that the palace was not just waiting for things to happen. They were ready for anything. The 2 ways of doing things were very different. In Santa Barbara, there were more papers and more fights. In England, everything was done quietly and like a doctor doing surgery. The money was already stopped. Now they were making sure the kids felt safe by showing they were stable. Catherine's video, Sophie's new job, and Louise's trip were all part of one big response. They did not have a big fight. They used soft power. This means they were strong without being loud. The royal family was building a wall of safety around 2 children whose lives were in the news every day. As the court in California showed more secret documents, the royal family did not get angry. They changed the rules and the story. The message was clear. They would show they were stable, not just say it. As February 16th got closer, it was clear that this was more than a fight in one courtroom. It was a battle between 2 big systems. Each move was measured against the next one. So what did February 16th really show? Was the plan falling apart, or was there a move no one saw coming? Keep watching. The day the plan fell apart was a very big day. Everyone was looking at Santa Barbara. The court dates between February 16th and 18th would decide if the secret papers and flight logs were proof of a bad plan. On the morning of February 16th, the courthouse in Santa Barbara felt like the center of the world. Inside, the tone was very serious. Special computer experts showed the digital trail from Project Mirror. They showed the timeline very clearly on big screens. The 42-page book from January 18th was looked at line by line. They showed that someone had looked at the school forms for Doha many times. They showed the records of the private planes flying to Qatar in late 2025. They showed the messages about keeping the kids in Qatar so they couldn't be sent back. Each detail by itself might have been okay, but when you saw them all together, it looked like a plan to hide the kids. Then they talked about the money. The court looked at the $2.3 million spent on personal things. They looked at the $480,000 for fancy clothes and the $670,000 for private planes. They also looked at $1.1 million sent to the United Arab Emirates. They looked at the bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Groups in the UK and the US said that between $2.7 million and $4.4 million might have been used the wrong way. People who used to work at Archwell told their stories. Some said that the money for the secret plan was listed as money for charity. They did not guess why it was done. They just showed how it was done. By February 17th, the feeling in the court had changed. It was no longer about a marriage. It was about rules, money, and where the children belong. Meghan's lawyers said that Project Mirror was just an idea for their brand. They said they wanted to grow their business in the Middle East. But because of all the details about moving and the timing, it was hard to believe. The judge, Maya Caldwell, listened to everything. On February 18th, she gave her answer. She said the plan from February 11th would stay in place forever. This meant the children's lives were now set in stone. If anyone tried to move them without a written yes from both parents, they would have to pay $5 million. Meghan was told she had to pay back $1.3 million to the joint account within 90 days. This was because the money for the charity was used for other things. The Archwell Foundation itself was told it had to close down. Any money left would be frozen until it could be given to other charities. The most important part was about their names. For 10 years, they could not use names like Arch, Windsor, Sussex, or Lily to sell things. The children's social media would now be run by a special royal trust. Then the judge said something that everyone remembered. She said that being a mother is not a shield you can hide behind or a weapon you can use to fight. The room was very silent. When it was over, everyone was tired. The plan to move had been stopped. The money was gone. What started as a $37 million deal ended in a quiet courtroom. Outside, there were many cameras waiting. Inside, the rules of the fight had been changed forever. Now, could the end of a $37 million plan hide an even bigger secret? Who really won in that courtroom? The choice that changed everything was about more than just a name. When the court doors closed on February 18th, the legal fight was over. But for Prince Harry, the real change was just starting. The judge's rules had stopped the move, broken the money chain, and set clear rules for the kids. But the biggest change happened after the cameras were gone. For a long time, Harry was stuck between two lives. He was a son of the king and a man who walked away. He was a famous person from history and a dad trying to keep his kids safe. In that courtroom, those two lives crashed into each other. The secret move to Qatar was stopped. The money was locked up. The children's passports were safe. The fight was no longer about a plan. It was about what was left of his life. That night, Harry put out a short note on the royal website. It was not a big speech. What everyone noticed was how he signed it. It did not say Duke of Sussex. It did not say Prince. It said Henry Charles Albert David. To the people who study history, this was a huge deal. This was not just a small thing to make people feel sorry for him. By using his birth name, Harry was leaving his royal title behind. He was choosing to be a normal person. He was choosing to be responsible for himself. The timing was very important. He did this just hours after the judge made her final rules. It followed the rules about not using royal names to make money. The message was clear. Titles could not be used to win fights anymore. He was just a father now. Inside the palace, they were very quiet. They did not say he was coming back or that they were friends again. They treated his choice as the final answer. They made a special rule called the Sandringham Declaration. This rule says that the children will be protected no matter what Harry does. People noticed how different the two brothers were. While Harry was becoming just one person, Prince William was building strong walls that would last forever. William's way of doing things was not about feelings. It was about rules, money, and safety. The system moves forward whether people like it or not. For Harry, giving up his titles was not a fight against the king. It was a way to stop the fighting. By signing as Henry Charles Albert David, he left the giant royal machine. What was left was a father who had to follow court orders and show up for his kids every day. There was no clapping when the note was posted. There was no relief. Only the feeling that something had changed forever and could not be fixed. The battle over money and laws was finished. The battle over who he was finished on a piece of paper. As the sun went down in California and England, it was clear that one story had ended. It did not end with a big party. It ended with a name written carefully at the bottom of a page. But could that name be a sign that he gave up? Or is this the start of an even bigger fight? After the battle comes the reckoning. By the night after Harry gave up his titles, everything in the royal family changed fast. The official newspaper for the king put out many updates. The people who were in charge of the Archwell money were gone. The charity was a mess. A new law called the Grey House Protection Act was passed. This law makes sure the youngest kids in the family stay safe from any more pressure. In just a few days, Archwell fell apart completely. The workers who used to be very loyal began to tell the truth to the police. They gave papers and stories that showed the money was not handled right. The newspapers changed their stories almost overnight. A big newspaper called the Washington Post wrote about how different things were now. Before, everyone was excited about Meghan and Harry. Now everyone was looking at their mistakes and what they owed. The story was no longer about glamour. It was about being responsible for what you do. People who watched the news changed their minds too. More people were upset with Harry and Meghan than before. Only 28% of people still liked them. Meghan was now in a life that had many rules. She had to follow the court orders and could not do whatever she wanted. She was stuck because of the law, not because she chose to be. Harry, however, had given up his titles but found a little bit of peace. He did not have a royal rank anymore, but he knew what he was doing. He was focusing only on being a dad and keeping his kids safe. The youngest kids were now protected by a special royal rule. This rule keeps them away from being used in the news or in legal fights. The difference between the two of them was very clear. One was stuck and alone. The other had given up his power but found a way to be himself. This moment was not about getting even or making a big show. It was about showing that rules matter. It was a statement that no famous person can go around the old rules that protect the king and his family. So what do you think? Was this just about the kids? Was it about a money problem? Or was it the moment Prince William showed that fame cannot beat a family that has been around for hundreds of years? We want to hear what you think in the comments below. Do not forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.